live. Oh my goodness, y'all. So I'm super, super excited to welcome y'all to this Sips and Conversations. As always, y'all know me. I'm your girl, Nancy Gua. And I'm so excited that we have reached this journey of Sips and Conversations where we have a co-host. We have a co-host. And before I bring her on, okay, let me just give a little background story as to how we arrived at this point. So for years and years, golly, since 2020 or 21, I can't remember. It's been quite a few years now. We've been getting together. We got together every single, was it Thursday night? Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And y'all joined in as, we talked to several different, first started with women that were close and dear to me, my good friends, and then just started to branch out and meet across the globe. Really, I've had ladies come on from Europe, from South America, from Canada, and obviously from the US as well. Um, and then throughout the journey, obviously, you can't do anything like that on your own, right? And so I really believe in partnership and alignment and things of that sort. So I started working with a company, and you all, if you're an old timer, you know what company I was working with. And through that, I was able to meet an incredible, incredible musician. Goes by the name of Yo Kingsley or Kingsley Music. I was messing up her name. I'm so sorry, girl. And long behold, she had a best friend that was moving from California to Chicago. They took this ridiculous road trip, and it was like at the same time I was switching assistants, and I was so sad. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? Her name was Kelly. Like, what am I gonna do without Kelly? I'm never gonna survive. And long behold, this young lady entered my life, and she has become more than an assistant from and I don't know if I can even call her that anymore. She calls herself my assistant, but I'm like, no, we just homies at this point. And definitely, a thought partner in a lot of what I do, and an accountability partner. All right. She is a very talented, she just got her MFA in Europe. And I'll let her kind of talk about that on her own here in a little bit. But and a few weeks ago we were just chatting, and I always do like subliminal, like, hey, what if da 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 blah blah, right? Or, oh my gosh, it'd be so much better instead of us looking for guests all the time. What if we just had you like hop on? And she's like, girl, I ain't got time for your nonsense. And then she surprised me a couple weeks ago and said, you know what, Nancy, you really have this vision, you really have this goal. And and I really would like to see this, pull through for you. And as she's finishing her studies, and yeah, and I'm like, girl, you need to get out there. She has so much to say. She's so wise. She is so well spoken. She's so intelligent, and so she's just a natural fit for for my co-host. So super excited to introduce to you all. All right, Elana Goodman to something to family. Welcome, Alana.
This is so weird to be on the opposite side of this. I'm so used to being behind the scenes. This is not me getting,
Like,
I'm just cheesing so hard while you're like telling our origin story. It's like, oh my
yeah,
gosh, why do I feel like yeah, I'm super excited. As Nancy said, I don't know what came over me of all the years we've been working together. I don't know what came over me in the last 2 weeks of just being like, you know what? I've been avoiding this for a really long time. That it feels like now all of a sudden I'm gonna step up. But it is true what you said of like just wanting most of the motivation is just because I really, really believe in this idea and I really believe in what we're doing. And so if it means I gotta face my fears a little bit and get in front of the camera and speak my mind, then I'm gonna have to do it. So
yeah, and I,
yeah.
and I really would like to kind of hop into just a little bit about just your backstory and
Yeah.
who you are, what you do, obviously, right, in the nature of SIPs. And before we get going, though,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
gotta
Go
tips
on.
and tactics.
Go
Just
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
you can't see my sip. I'm just kidding.
Don't worry about what's in my cup.
No, it's a Red Bull, y'all. Strawberry. I wish I threw it away. The watermelon Red Bull. I don't know. Do y'all have that in the UK?
They have flavors? I didn't know that was a thing. They don't have that
Do I
here.
need
Do
to
we have
run and grab this? The watermelon. Oh my gosh, y'all don't have flavors? There's like an apricot and peach. There's or apricot and something, but that's I love that. But the watermelon.
that? Okay.
Look,
I'll have to check the next time I go to. They're kind of basic here, so I don't know. I'm just sipping on some coffee, but I did make this mug. So I painted
no
this
way.
mug, so that's kind of fun.
Of course you did. So talented. Of course you painted your mug. Of
I
course you
didn't
did.
realize that was the mug I was using until just now, and I'm like, oh, look at me, just
It's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. All right. So, as promised, just want to kind of hop in a little bit, um, so people can get to kind of know you. I think everyone's gotten
yeah.
a good opportunity to know me over the past several years. So, who is Elana Goodman? And also, why do you believe in SIPs? Why
Oh,
SIPs?
that's a heavy conversation. Who am I? Well, you feel like you kind of gave the origin story a little bit, but if any of the people that are watching have been um, involved with anything you've done in the last 2 years, um, been on SIPs, been interested in SIPs. Um, I am the faceless name behind the emails that get sent out.
You exist, y'all.
I
It's not really
exist.
just me typing up.
It's not it's not her alter ego, it's me. Um, if you've seen any of Nancy's content in the last couple of years, that's also me. In terms of like the planning or whatever. But yeah, it really my origin story is I was assigned to be your social media manager at the time when I was like switching jobs. We're gonna talk about transition a little bit today, but I woke up and I was like, I hate my job. I hate my life. I hate everything that I'm doing right now. And my best friend, as you said, was like, I can help you change careers and do something that's a bit more flexible and allows you to like do the things you want to do, but also like, make money so that I can pay my bills. And so I got paired with you as a social media manager in the beginning. Um, and then yeah, you were losing a an assistant at the time, and so they had approached me saying, would I be interested in, going outside of the social media thing and just doing assistant work? Which at that time I had only done the social media management stuff. I had not been an assistant or anything like that. I had done office work, but like nothing like that. So I was like, wow, this person's trusting me with their entire like everything. Like I was like, yeah, yeah, sure, I can do it. I'll figure it out. Whatever. And then yeah, that was like 2 years ago or something like that. And since then I know it's so crazy. Like since then we've literally had at least a meeting once a week, like every week. I don't even think we've taken much time off from each other. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Uh, we're just obsessed with each other and we barely take time off. It's so funny because even like having our weekly check-ins or our meetings doesn't really feel like, I mean, it's a meeting for sure. We get stuff done. I don't want people to think like we're not professional or
Yes,
anything.
right, right.
But it really does just feel like a kiki. And so I feel like recently that's been the main motivation for me to get more involved with SIPs as like a front face, because I feel like as I've been transitioning sort of in my own personal life and in my career and really stepping into a different energy in that regard and like sort of like honing my own voice and my own like path in that way, you've also kind of been stepping into a new thing. And so when we were originally planning this relaunch for SIPs, we had been well, I should say I had been reaching out me. I had been reaching out to so many people for guests, and like it was we were just coming up against the same roadblocks that we have in the past, which is like either I reach out to a bunch of people that never get back to me, or I get a bunch of people confirmed and then they all cancel or they need to reschedule, which is fine. People live busy lives. But I was so worried. So I don't know why something about this relaunch just felt really important and really special like this time around. Like not that it wasn't before, but there's just something about it this time. Maybe because I know you better than I did when we started or something that like I just was like we can't let this thing fall apart again. Like we're putting so much energy and time into like the redesign, how it's going to look. And it's a message that both you and I are super passionate about and we align a lot about, which is just like sharing in story. And, something that you've said before and you say to me all the time, and we talk about it all the time about like our stories not being for ourselves and that whole concept. And so I was just like, this time around, like, I basically came to you and was like, I refuse to let this thing lose the momentum that it deserves. So if that means I need to be the person that's going to step up and take that spot, then that's what I got to do. And yeah, just even maintaining community as well while I'm overseas. I can't remember if you said that at the beginning or not, but I'm getting my master's degree in England, in London. And so, more so than before, I think maintaining community is so important to me with the people I align with because I have such a far distance from home and the places that I know. So, that was really long winded, but I feel like that's the
Yeah.
the best way to sum up our how you know me, my story, how I got here, all that stuff.
And all that good stuff. And as you're talking, I'm just like, I've probably said some of this before, but a
Yeah,
piece of me is like trying not to get like super emotional
I
because I
know.
got mascara on and I'm not gonna like actually just like
I wore
start
these big
bawling.
glasses on purpose. I was like, I just in case I start to
It's not
get
gonna happen.
emotional.
Like I refuse. I'm like fighting them like right here. I'm like, "Argh. Do I go get a napkin right now? Simply because, you always hear the word community,
Yeah.
you hear the word sisterhood, you hear all these words, a champion, I'm
Hmm.
championing for this person. And um, it's very few times that I can just say that I've had someone just champion for me in this way,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's more than just like, hey, this is, you're like, I'm doing my job. You say that, but no, it's like beyond that. It's just like
Yeah.
true compassion, true care. You're such an incredible soul. And I'm just like way beyond just thankful and blessed. It's like God alone, like just put you in my life. And not for me, right? But for the purpose of something greater that goes beyond you and I. So I am super excited about this new chapter
Yeah.
as we both transition. And you kind of hit on, the topic of transition. I know as we were kind of getting ready to have our conversation, we're like, okay, so what do we talk about? Because we
Yeah.
talk all the time in our check-ins for like, I think the last one was like 2 hours.
Yeah. Because they were like, we need to just talk for an hour and then we'll talk about business. But like, we got a lot to talk
And so, but when it's, a little bit more like formalized, I guess, in a
Yeah.
way, without being formalized, it's like, okay, let's like have like a conversation that's structured intentionally.
Yeah.
Because I think for me and for you both, a big thing was a big vision is just, how are we giving, not giving back, but when someone comes to SIPS and someone
Yeah.
finds us, on the interwebs, especially your incredible marketing abilities, um, right? Or, when we do, any more live shows and events and things of that sort,
Yeah.
we want them to walk away feeling impacted,
Yeah.
feeling encouraged, feeling motivated, feeling like they can too.
Yeah.
And to walk away with something, maybe
Yeah.
it's a shifted mindset, or shifted mindsets. Oh my gosh, they're so huge, especially as you're transitioning, right? So like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know the transitional period, like how do you describe like what period you're kind of in right now, transitionally? So
Ooh, yeah. Um, I will say just before I answer that question, something else that I just wanted to mention, which I think is important to our origin story that I did not touch on, is that
yeah.
fun fact that Nancy and I have never actually met in person.
Yeah.
That this
Ever.
relationship developed strictly online, which to your point about
Yeah.
community, of developing community, is that like I think that's another reason why this works for us and why we wanted to expand it is because if we were able to like develop this real sisterhood and real connection through a screen, I mean, I feel like Catfish should come and just like make sure that we both exist. But
Literally. So I started watching that. You told me about the Why Are
yeah,
You Hiding Me or something? Oh
yes.
my god, I'm so obsessed with you.
Why is Nancy hiding me? Why did she never want me to meet anyone in her life? I'm just kidding. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out there, um, to 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 touch on like why this the doing it this way and this platform felt the most like authentic for us. And we fully plan on meeting each other in person at some point and
Yeah.
like filming together in person. Now that we're gonna do this thing, but like
Yeah.
just to be able to maybe coming off of COVID or whatever, but to be able to like, connect with people and find connection with people doesn't always have to involve that physical space if that's, something that's a limitation for you or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
to
That's
answer your
actually
question,
really sorry. No, 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 no,
no,
no,
you
not
go
yet,
off,
not
you
yet,
go
not yet.
off, you go off, go, go, go.
I'm like, no, 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 not yet, not yet, not yet. Because it all ties in together, right? I'm like, no, 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 not yet, not yet. I was like trying to like stick on cue and be like, okay, well, speaking of transition, but no, no, not yet. So, because you just said something that's really important, especially as you are transitioning throughout different parts of life. Like,
Yeah.
there's not always the people that you're doing life with right now
Mhm.
are not necessarily the same people that you're going to continue to do life with.
Yeah,
And a lot of
100%.
times, we get stuck in this box, in this system, in this thought process of living because you're not able to, you don't have a circle around you, right? That can kind of move and shift with you wherever you're going,
Mhm.
like mentally.
Mhm.
And to your point, like being able to have these like virtual connections is so impactful. Like these virtual communities where you can plug in online and you
Mhm.
can find someone, right? Like I have a lot of like I call them like um virtual mentors. Like everyone that knows me knows I love Myron Golden, y'all.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
just I love Myron Golden. Marvin Mitchell has been really instrumental for me as well, getting into the financial space. Donnie Wiggins was my very first like online mentor, and I remember I paid for her course, honey, and I did not finish it. But um,
In
but it
true
taught me a lot.
Sagittarian form.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Like, why would I finish this? I got what I needed out of it. but but yeah, and then David Shands, who really I learned about Donnie through David because of Social Proof podcast. And you just have so many, there's so many people that I can't remember their names. I just follow them on Instagram. You've got
Yeah.
like endless that you can touch digitally, right? And it's just growing. They have these communities that they've formed, and the impact that's had on that virtual community is that
Mhm.
it allows you to just stretch your mind a little bit more and connect with people that you normally would not. Because I don't think that we would have connected with one another had I, to be honest, I got with, um, with the staffing agency or I don't know, assistant agency, virtual agency, because I was in transition and I needed help, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, when you're transitioning, it's really important to just start building, to be able to find some way to connect with people that are outside of your day to day, for
100%.
sure.
And I think, um, again, speaking on like where I'm at in transition right now is, because I had spoken a little bit earlier about like community and why community has become so important to me. And like, while I fully stand behind my decision to leave the US, because that's kind of, I'm in the transition of like, I left the US to get a master's degree because, fun fact, it was way less expensive for me to go and get my master's degree in another country than it was to stay in the
Surprise,
US.
surprise.
Right. So fun fact for
Surprise,
y'all, if
surprise.
for y'all out there who are thinking about it, do it. But so now I've finished that big chapter, and that was like the main reason why I came here. And so I came up against this roadblock of like, okay, I'm here. Now what? Question mark, right? And so through that process, I decided to stay and that I want to put down roots here. I want to see what Europe has to offer for me. It feels like the right place for me. It felt like that when I first got here. Everything that's happened to me here, the people I've met here, the small community I've built here. But there is still that part of me that misses my US community and that like ground roots. And especially with everything that's going on in the world right now, like I feel like we need to be encouraged and reminded that like we can all look out for each other and we can all be there for each other. Because I know there's, we're not going to get political today, but there's a lot of stuff going
Yeah,
on in the States right now that like I'm not necessarily, experiencing like the brunt of that in real time because I'm in another country. That
yeah,
stuff doesn't affect me necessarily in the same way. Like the ripple effect might affect me later on, but
yeah,
how legislature goes and all that. But so for me, like transitioning into this current space, I do still want to build that community in a way that does like cross borders, countries, because now moving forward, I feel like, and maybe I don't know if you agree, that there's going to be so many more people from the US, like expats, that are going to be leaving to live abroad and go elsewhere. And
yeah,
so, how can we still reach out and keep that community and support each other through this really weird time?
yeah.
um,
So weird.
Outside of my own transition. And so, like, maybe I don't know, and maybe it's like a collective transitioning that's happening right now, and that's why,
Mhm.
what I was mentioning earlier, like right now feels like this feels like it's more important than any other time, to
Yeah,
do it, is because I feel like there's a collective shift of like everyone feeling like where they're at is not where they want to be, where they're meant to be, and everybody's doing the best that they can to figure out how to find where that path is. Or maybe it's just because my life and my algorithms are geared towards other people that are in my same age group or whatever, but
yeah,
everyone just
yeah,
seems like they're all really just transitioning and going through it. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers the question of like what the transition is for me or why the
yeah,
transition for me or whatever, but that's like
yeah,
I think that's why I felt so strongly of like because you are also in a transition currently too. And so us transitioning into this podcast together, us
yeah,
like transitioning in our own personal lives, I just feel like this is a big topic and we can subdivide, but this feels like really important to talk about.
yeah. And like transition is like forever evolving, you know. For me, transitioning um from one role to another is something that's happening live in this
Live
moment.
in full
Live
effect.
full effects, right? And then also entering into a dual career transitionally for me is quite
Mhm.
major. There's just so much that you know, purpose that I just feel is just on my heart and just continues to weigh me. And I saw a quote and it said something like, it was actually just yesterday. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah.
It was saying something. Might have put it in my stories. Let's see.
I haven't
Yeah,
looked
there it
at your
is.
Instagram today, so I don't know.
Uh,
I said I
say
haven't
I hadn't
looked at
been
your
on Instagram.
Instagram today. I
Oh,
check Nancy's Instagram every day when she posts, but I haven't checked today.
yeah, you're like, okay, why is she not actually talking about this? Yeah, yeah. Okay, I need to stop acting. This is what it said.
Yeah.
Yandy Smith actually posted this. She found it somewhere, obviously, but it says, I need to stop acting like I'm afraid of my own power and start to move as my highest self completely and unapologetically.
Yeah.
And like, I literally saw that. It had to have been like at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was 18 hours ago. Oh my gosh. So it wasn't at 3 a.m. Um, but when I saw that, I was like, oh, that spoke to me
Yeah.
so much because how many of us are walking around avoiding the need to shift and avoiding the transition that needs to happen and avoiding the
Yeah.
changes that are imperative for the life that we actually want and deserve because we're afraid, you know, and I talk so freely about like my fear of success because like you
Yeah.
got to keep that up, right? So when you transition to something else, like it's so fearful because like for you being in the UK
Yeah.
and transitioning from home, like it's like okay, if I go backwards, did
Yeah.
I fail? If I don't finish what I did I fail?
Right.
And so it's scary. It's so scary to take that first step and then take the next step behind it and the next step behind it because it's like for each step you keep taking and
Yeah.
getting closer, it's like you've seen me do it. Like I'll just
Yeah.
start hyperventilating. I can't wait. Uh,
And then I'm like, it's
because
okay. We're
it's
gonna do it
scary.
together. Everything's
Like,
no, but
and
it's
that's why I
it's
believe in having, yeah, like the community. Because if I did not have that, if I didn't have you and some other people in my life, my sister's so huge for me as
yeah.
well. To encourage that, like you better stop being a little, you know what, and strap your bra on and go to war.
Period. You better shape up and strap up. I so wholeheartedly believe what you're saying. And it's so, again, like the other thing you should know about Nancy and I don't know if it's because we're Sagittarians or whatever it is, but we're always so weirdly aligned with so many things that are happening. So it's so funny that you bring that up because I recently was at a cafe by myself and I was sort of like journaling about transition. And I was like, this is so unrelated to when we had decided on this like topic for this podcast or whatever it was. But because
Yeah,
I've been having a lot of like feelings and conversations around my living situation, I'm shifting from uh, being in a living situation that's largely based off of my university here and my that career and that experience, whatever, into not only living in London period, but also transitioning into moving in with a partner, which is something I've never done before. And so, there's been a lot of like hard conversations and like I wanted to sit down with my thoughts alone and be like, why is this so much for me? Right. And I was journaling about transition and journaling about letting go and journaling about fear and what fear looks like to me. Um, and part of it is like that fear looks like me getting in my own way, which is something you were just talking about with like embracing authenticity and whatever. But whatever sort of like spiritual beliefs that you resonate with, right? I think everyone can kind of agree in energy and like universal energy. And something that I think a lot of people have a hard time with is this ideology around like a path being made for you, whether you believe in like a monotheistic kind of outlook of spirituality or an energetic universal outlook of like,
my,
you
my
know,
dear, my dear, my dear. My vocabulary is not that large.
so sorry,
Yeah, please
monotheistic.
define monotheistic. Yeah, please define that word.
One God, one God,
Oh,
one
got you. Okay,
spirituality that revolves religion around one God,
got you,
monotheist.
got you. Monotheist. Theist. Okay, now
Yeah,
it
yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah. Like monogamy, it's like the same thing.
I was like mono one. Okay, theist. the okay, got you,
Right. So
got you.
there are people that believe in like one, and then there are people that believe in many or universe or,
Yeah.
infinite, whatever, right? And so there's this both sort of spiritualities revolve around this idea of like, you know, the path, uh, whether it's God or whether it's the universe, but they already know what path you're meant to be on. You already know what path you have to be on, and it's a thing about claiming it, right? And so when I was
Ooh.
journaling, some things that were coming up for me of like, fear looks like for me getting in my own way by trying to control whatever situation that I'm in, right? Which means I'm putting up blockages towards this energy when in reality, it's not me having to like find the path, right? I need to look for the path and I need to find it so that I can continue on it. Like, that's not what it is. In reality, it's already mine, right? My soul and my energy already knows what path it's on because it's already been on it. Does that make sense? This is maybe getting a little
Yes.
bit like woo woo,
Oh,
but
dude, not if you girl, you know, not for me. Um,
for
I,
those listening, don't click out. I promise I have a
yeah.
point.
And I
But
will add this kind of this blurb here. If you've made it this, to this point and you can resonate to that point, just drop like a what color we're gonna use, like a heart, some sort of a heart,
yeah,
or just
do
tell
your
your story. Like,
yeah,
yeah, drop a comment as to, you know, what situation you have been in before that can that allows you to resonate with what Alana's saying here. Because
yeah,
I know for sure
yeah,
I have been there. I continue to be there. Yeah.
yeah. And that sort of thing, like if it's mine and my soul already knows it and it yearns and wants to continue on the thing with that it already knows, and not in a thing of like comfort, in a thing of like staying in the box that it knows, in the thing of like it already knows what direction it wants to go in. The path has
Yeah.
already been written, and so therefore letting go of that fear is me letting go of the control over knowing what that's going to be, but also being willing to like embrace whatever the energy is and like sitting in whatever that is as it's happening in the moment, which I think is the scariest thing, especially if you're someone that like struggles with, like, I know I also struggle with fear of success in the same way that you struggle. And so for us, that fear looks like planet, 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 right? Overly planet so that
Right.
everything is planned to a T.
Yeah.
And so, what I'm having to really sit with and understand in my current transition, and I think part of that is happening to you as well, is like, yes, we plan. I'm not sitting here like trying to like advocate for like, go out there
Yeah.
and like, just walk out into the middle of the street and don't look. The cars won't hit you, That's not what I'm trying to say. You do have
If
to
you
look
do
both
that, make
ways.
sure you're insured.
Like, you do still have to
So,
look
like,
both ways. But oh, I just hit my desk. Sorry. But I think letting go of the fact that like because sometimes I think there's a thing as too much preparation, right? We're preparing too fully, and what we actually need to do is just do the thing or let go or sit with the fact that like, you know, for the first time in my life, I'm doing things slightly unplanned. Uh I'm not making sure I have all my ducks in a row before I move to the next thing. I'm just sort of like I'm doing a little bit here and there. I'm investigating certain areas of my career field and whatever. But I'm just going to sort of sit back and let like the energy of this big thing that I've done reap the reward that I don't know yet. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think part of transition, as fearful and like anxiety inducing as it is sort of like letting go of the fact that like it's gonna make you anxious. It's probably gonna stress you out. You're probably gonna be a little scared. Um, but if you just let go and stop
Yeah.
worrying so much about it and worrying so much about like protecting yourself from the unknown, you never
Yeah.
know what the unknown can bring you. And so
Yeah.
like you kind of just have to sit in that, which is proving to be very difficult for me. So I can imagine it's going to be
Yeah.
difficult for other people too.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah.
for sure. Oh, so well said. It's so hard to just sit in there, especially when what you've been doing is kind of okay, right? But like what you've been doing is like, oh, it's kind of working. I'm living my life. I'm not, I especially when you talk about like a lot of times transition happens, the big transitions happen around finances,
Hmm.
taking different jobs or
Hmm.
getting into different careers,
Yeah, because that's
deciding
security,
to,
right? That's safety
yeah,
and
yeah,
security. In a capitalistic society, that's safety and
yeah,
security, right?
yes. Just like, and so there's so much anxiety that surrounds that. At the same time, you know, I say this all the time, and I do always tend to speak from a place of like where like my thought of spirituality, right? And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so if you are praying for, hey, I need a change to happen and I need
Mhm.
this to happen, like one, you've got to be ready for that change to happen.
Yeah.
So one thing that I know that I always pray on is for me to be ready for that change to happen. Like
Hmm.
that's one of my prayers.
Hmm.
And not for the thing, but it's like, okay, I feel this yearning desire to do more, please
Hmm.
prepare my mindset to accept that change.
Yeah.
And I've never really told the story. I have so many stories to talk about,
Well, girl, we got a
pretty much a
podcast.
lot
We
of
can
it.
tell all kinds of stuff.
I know, but like, one of the hardest transitions that I made was deciding to no longer be with my son's dad.
Yeah.
And that was a really, really hard time for me because I grew up with two parents. My
Hmm.
parents are still married. They've been married for golly, 42 years or something.
Hmm.
Um, and so there's the thought of like my kid not growing up in a household with his father was really, really tough.
Yeah.
And there was times where I did leave once before and then I came back because I wasn't ready. I prayed for
Hmm.
this, that, and the third, but I wasn't ready. And the next
Hmm.
time I was like, okay, I I literally prayed and it was just shown to me, it was revealed, but I was ready. I was ready at that
Right.
time.
Right.
And so a lot of times like you could want something so bad. You
Yeah.
want it, but you're not actually ready for what that might look like. For me,
Right.
it looked like literally being homeless,
Yeah.
right? Like I wasn't sleeping in my car, but I had no home. I have parents. I could have gone back home, and they gave their doors always open, but
Yeah.
I was kind of fixated, especially at the time, to like stay local so that he can have access to his father.
Right.
And then I started to build a life for myself as well. But it was always about my son,
Hmm.
and so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna. This is where I need to be at. So the transition for me at that time was just up and leave and just continue to trust the process,
Yeah. Yeah.
and things turned out how they need to turn out kind of in the long
Yeah.
run.
Yeah.
But had I never just taken that leap, not knowing where it was going to lead me, not knowing what was going to happen, had I just stayed complacent,
Yeah.
sometimes I look back, I'm like, golly, like where would my son be? How
Yeah.
unhealthy would his mindset be? Where would I be? Because I mean, back then to now, I can't even tell y'all financially
The
the
difference.
change
Yeah. Yeah.
that happened. And that's another thing. Like when you're in that spirit of transition and there's that you can't like your spirit is yearning for that, right? Like you said, like
Hmm.
it's been on that path before and it just wants to go there, but you keep holding it back.
Yeah.
So it's holding you back in so many different ways. And so the moment you can say, I release the control, I release and I trust,
Yeah.
then you can actually start living that life, right? That was actually meant for you.
Hmm.
And again, our lives are not for ourselves, they're to provide impact for others. And so
Mhm.
when you're afraid of that transition, how many people, like, who are you actually hindering? It's not you.
Mhm.
You're afraid for yourself, but
Mhm.
really and truly, the people that are missing out, yeah, you intrinsically, because there's going to be an intrinsic value that you're going to get.
100%,
But
but there's all the ripple effect. It's the ripple effect of
yes,
how it, yeah, yeah,
yeah, and I just stop and I think, like, if I had never taken that bold leap, that's what really just started to create that domino for
yeah,
my life. If I never would have done that, like,
yeah,
where would I be?
yeah. Well, and something I think to mention as well of that I thought of while you were speaking of that, of like, is like there's also a a timeline of like, even though you really wanted it, right? You weren't ready, right? In so many ways. And even if you had made that choice at that time, the first time you really wanted it, it
Yeah.
wouldn't have necessarily transitioned in the way that it did because you weren't really ready. So like
Hmm.
there is that aspect of like letting go and being ready for something really is an act of like just truly letting go and being okay with whatever happens. That's really what it comes down to, is like it's not even necessarily like, we're talking about financial, right? Like being financially ready. Yes, being financially ready is important. We're not, no one's sitting here saying you need to walk out of the front door with $20 in your back pocket. But, if you have the opportunity to be financially ready, do that. Some people don't have that opportunity. Some people are in crisis or in a space that's not safe for them. And that's what they have to do, right? But ultimately, the act of following that path and the act of like whether you've prayed on it and you've become ready, or whether it's a manifestation thing for you, or whether you're just like sensing that energetic shift, is really an act of like true letting go. I don't remember who said it. I want to say it's Zoe Saldana that was talking about how she liked herself and how she loved herself and how she learned that that path of how to love herself, because she was like, I like myself and I love myself, but more important than that, I love the way that I make mistakes. I love the way that I process, and I love the way that I learn, and I love, you know, all of those things that encompass me. And I think that is in and of itself what that letting go feels like, of like, I'm okay with the fact that if I let go, it still might not work out, But
Yeah.
that's because whatever happens on the other side of it is there to teach you that lesson, is there to, if it fails, quote unquote, because I don't think it's really failure, it's just lessons, right?
Yep.
If it
Yep.
fails, it's because you needed to learn something about that. If you are like really, meditating or praying heavily on an opportunity, a specific opportunity, and you don't get that opportunity, it's not because you don't deserve that opportunity or that opportunity is not meant for you. It just means that like there's a lesson in the fact that you're not going to get that opportunity just yet. It's there to teach, something to you, and you may not actually even know what that is until like
Yeah.
years down the line.
Yeah. Yep.
I was talking with my partner recently about like this perfectionism paralysis thing of like, if it's not perfect, then I can't do it.
Yeah.
I need everything
Yeah.
to be perfect. I need it all to be
Yeah.
really specific before I do the thing.
Yeah.
And, something that he was saying was about like, well, being, fearful of the wrong choice, or doing the wrong thing or whatever. And that's why he like really wants to make sure that it's perfect before, or, perfect, whatever,
Yeah.
in order to do it. And I said, well, I don't really believe there's such a thing as like wrong or right. Like it's just choices. And those choices just inevitably bring lessons, and then you just learn
Yeah.
from them. Like, I don't
Yeah.
really believe there's a wrong or right choice, right? It's just a choice that you make. And it's either, like, especially when we're talking about goal setting or transitioning or any of this stuff, the choice that you make is either going to get you there, like, from point A to point B, or you might have to go around the whole alphabet twice to get there. So, like, it
Yeah.
just really depends on the choice that you're taking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love it. So many thoughts were like coming through my mind as you were saying, as you were talking, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, fighting, like, do I get out my notes and like start taking notes so that I can like address? I'm
Lucky
literally
for
sitting here
you,
fighting.
this is being recorded and I can give you the unedited version.
Yeah, because because you said so many like really really great things. Like as you're transitioning, it's not always going to be perfect. As you're moving to a new, you're not always going to necessarily get it right, but make a choice.
Yeah.
Like as they say these days, stand on business, make a decision. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't want to make decisions because I think it's hard to look yourself in the mirror and say this did not work out because of something that I did. It's easier to play the blame game or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
But I
yeah.
look at it like, if you can just do the thing, just go ahead and just do the thing. Worst case scenario, what's going to happen? You might lose a lot of money. You might be in the wrong. That's really what kills a lot of people. They might lose
Yeah.
a lot of money. You might lose out on some time. But then again, how much time you really putting in. We're not going to talk about
Right,
that.
right, right. It's a different episode.
For another day. But the worst thing that can happen is you end up right back where you're at.
Well,
I
that's
mean, really,
exactly what I was going to say. The worst thing that could happen is the exact thing that you're afraid of happening. And if you already are prepared for the worst thing happening, then that's really not the worst thing. It just means things will be exactly as they are now. Like,
and you already know what that life is like.
right.
Now, are you okay to taste something so sweet and have to go backwards? Right?
That's the question. That is the question.
And if you do go backwards, so whenever someone graduates from school or
Yeah.
whatnot, I remember my brother got done with school. Um, well, with he's a physical therapist, and he got done with that school
Yeah.
because he, of course, went back and is doing another school.
Is can never be too educated, you know?
Learn always learning. He's so intelligent. So, but when he got done, I remember us being at his apartment. He went to Alabama State University, ASU. I forget what their mascot is. Y'all don't
I'm
judge
the
me.
last
I don't
person you
know.
should ask. I'm in London. I don't know what's
Yeah,
going on.
yeah, ASU, and so we were down there. We were celebrating him, and the family's giving out cheers and toasts, and everyone's doing congratulatory speech. And all that hit me was like, as we're going around the room, being West African, it's very prideful to doctor, lawyer, engineer, failure.
Mhm.
Like, right? As
Yeah.
him becoming a physical therapist, he's a DPT, a doctor of physical therapy. And so he's the golden child, as I
Mhm.
like to call it, because he's the doctor.
Yeah.
And and so that's very celebrated and was the title for me. What I wanted to make sure I took a moment to celebrate was the person that it took to gain that accolade,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I've seen him in school for so many years, up giving up so many weekends,
Yeah.
right? Instead of going out and partying, he's seeing his friends kind of move on with their lives, going to school for 4 years and getting into these careers, starting families and all that. Um, and meanwhile, he's like, I'm still here, like I'm still doing this. And
Yeah.
I'm like, the person that it took to be disciplined enough
Yeah.
is that's what I celebrate. The man that it took to hold true to his goals, to hold true to himself, like to give himself what he deserved.
Mhm.
That's what that's the real, for me, was the real celebration. The titles and the ceremony and all that stuff, like that's great, right? Those are the feel goods.
Yeah.
But as you're going through the change, as you're going through the transition, and when you make it on that other side,
It's still you.
it's and you've become this, you see the butterfly, the what is the caterpillar becomes this
Yeah.
butterfly. It's still
Yeah.
a caterpillar, to your point, right? But then now it's so beautiful. It's gained wings. It has new abilities. It can fly.
Yeah.
It can pollinate, right? Don't they pollinate? Is that what they do? So
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's bees. That's bees that pollinate.
It's
Just kidding,
bees.
y'all. But you know what I mean. You
This
get what
isn't
I'm
a
saying. Like,
biology podcast. It's fine.
but yeah, so that person is who's to be celebrated. So
Yeah.
one of the questions that was coming through my mind, and maybe as we're probably getting ready to wrap up here,
Yeah.
um,
Don't worry, we'll
I
be
would just,
back. We'll talk more. I'm not a one-time guest this time.
oh yes, jeez, whatever. Oh, sorry. I wish I had like my
I know, you see
hair.
me with my 2 inches trying to really make something shake.
I got my earrings are flopping, flipping and flopping. Like, give me bang, honey, give me bang. um, which, by the way, I love your cut. I say that all the time, but y'all, if you're not already, please go follow Elana, and we'll have a moment here in the end where you'll just give your handles and all that stuff because y'all got to
Okay.
see her. Oh, no, her hair, her whole. Anyways, so what are as you're transitioning,
Yeah.
as people are transitioning,
Yeah.
what would you say are the top three like most critical, whether it be like things to remember or
Yeah.
probably things to remember, like top three points that people should remember, like should keep in mind, as they transition, what would help someone transition?
Yeah. I think the first thing is to remember that not all transitions work out the way that you expect them to. Sometimes they work out much better than you expected them to, and sometimes they don't work out at all. And that's okay. That's the nature of transitioning. Um, I think the second thing is don't be afraid to let go of anything, people, places, spaces that are very clearly not serving you. I think, like, for me, a huge sign that I'm need to make a shift is when I'm meeting a lot of resistance. Like when something feels really hard, like harder than it needs to be, and I can't figure out why. It's probably
Yeah,
because that thing is not the thing. Whatever it is, that thing, that person, that place, that space, if you're meeting that resistance or if it feels like it's not for you, then that's the exact thing that you need to let go of. And I think lastly, which I think is the most important thing and the lesson I'm still currently in process of learning, and I don't think it's a lesson I'll ever stop learning, is that every time you enter into a new transition and you exit out the other side, you are not the same person that started. And so all of the things that that person was afraid of, right? They have now gained like the knowledge and the strength to make it through those really hard things. And so even though it might be scary to do the next set of hard things, you've already shown yourself and proven to yourself that you can do those hard things because that's what that other person did at the start of the shift you just made. So it doesn't matter what stage of life that you're in, you have the strength to overcome whatever transition you're going through because you've already done it. And even if it hasn't happened recently, maybe it's a new thing, you have already done it. And so you're just as strong and just as ready as you need to be to go into the next thing, even if it doesn't feel like it. I think those are my 3 things.
oh, that's so good. Oh my gosh, I told y'all this behind the camera.
Just hiding.
Can be going. Um, no, this is why I just love talking to you because I always walk away personally feeling like one more sane,
Yeah.
more sane and more seen, more understood.
Yeah.
And I think that's the power of sisterhood is like being able to have these conversations very openly
Yeah.
and to walk away feeling like, okay, like I've gained something and I know
Yeah.
something more. I'd say like my top, I don't know if I have three. I'm
Yeah.
so good at looking. I asked the question, but I
I
don't
know
know
you
the
said
answer.
3. I was like, woo, that's a number. Let me
I
think.
know. I was like, maybe if I'm like, hopefully she don't go like. What about you? But then I'm like, let me go ahead because
No, you should do
let me
it
be
because
fair.
maybe this will be a thing that we do. We don't have any segments like yet. This was just an introduction to like the new
Yeah.
wave. We don't have like
Yeah.
segments or anything, so maybe this will be a segment. I don't know.
This could be a segment. Yeah. Um, golly, like forever. So now I gotta start coming with some notes. Um, but so I'd say like number one for me is believing as you're going into whatever transition, whatever period of life that you're in, believing and understanding, like you really have to believe it because it all
Yeah,
starts with your belief
yeah,
and that you are so worth it.
yeah.
Like you are so worth it. Like a lot of what like holds us back for whatever reason we don't think that we deserve that life, we deserve that thing, we deserve.
Mhm.
No, you are absolutely worthy of whatever it is that you want. If for you it's to, you know, become a millionaire one day, no, you are worthy. Like you deserve that. And more than just the money, you deserve the reason why you want, like why that goal is important.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily just about the value, right? Like the physical, the tangible value. A lot of times it's intrinsically. And so like you are more than worthy to be that version of yourself. Um, I'd say the second thing, God, this is hard. How did you do this back to back?
You do this
Um,
to every single guest, and every single one is like, "This is hard," and you're like, "Yeah, I know, whatever." No, you
I'm gonna go for it.
It's my podcast. I make the rules. Now what? Now what?
So like the next would be no matter how hard that like the journey's gonna be difficult. So I just think you kind of made a similar point. Like the
Yeah,
journey's gonna be difficult. So go into it with that mindset of like, hey, I know this is gonna be hard, but this is who do you want to be on the other side of
yeah,
that, right? Like what is that transformational change really about?
yeah.
What is it like? So what is like defining your why? Like why do I want this? Right? Is super important. And so yeah, so I'd say that would be my number two. It's like
Okay.
as you're going through that, like make sure you define your why. So
Yeah.
someone could say, hey, I want to lose 100 pounds. First of all, you're worthy of having the life, like physically, right? The appearance that you
Mhm.
want, but more importantly, the health, like living a
Yeah.
long life, like you're
Yeah.
worthy of that. But it's like, why do you want to lose the 100 pounds?
Yeah.
Find that and own that. If it's because you want to stunt on somebody because
Right.
you
Right.
might own that, but then like kind of go to therapy
Then,
too
yeah, maybe
because
go to therapy, but
because it's like that should not be the only reason. Um,
but we digress. If that's your why.
yeah, yeah, like really define, like own your why. Like,
Yeah.
why is this thing very important to you?
Yeah.
I think that's something that a lot of times we're missing as we're setting these goals and getting into these transitions. Is like we
Yeah.
don't really know our why. We want this, but okay, but why? Why do you want
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be number two. And thirdly, would be similar to what you said, have
Yeah.
the community, like let go of all the naysayers that are around you, all the people that are doubting you. The moment they try and start, let go of them, and remember that you are worth not having that kind of toxic. You know,
Toxicity.
English is my first language. They, yeah, you know what I say.
I got you. I got you. I've been doing this for a long time. I got you.
Yeah. Yeah, English is my first language. I didn't learn the dialect, but but still, but yeah, let go of that. Like completely
Yeah.
let go of the toxic people in your life. The toxicity. I'm going to say this word. Toxicity. Toxicity. Let me say
Toxicity.
toxicity.
There you go. You got
Toxicity.
it.
Release the toxicity. Okay, release some. Send it back to sender. From your life, because like that kind of nonsense, like who needs that? It's only going to,
No.
and that toxic person could look like your mama, it could look like your dad, it could look like your best friend, It could like your brother, your cousin, the closest. It could like your spouse,
Yeah,
the
100%.
closest to you, and you need to set that boundary. When I say let go, like don't like go firing your mom and be like, I don't want you my life, da, da, da.
You're right,
But
right.
like when you do that, so like set that boundary with them. Is more so what I mean when I say
Yeah.
that. So yeah, I think those are going to be like my top three. I can keep going, but top
That's okay because we're gonna have another episode. So before we go, I think it's important for us to just say we're going to start doing this podcast at least once a month. Hopefully bi-weekly is the goal for us, but it can be a bit challenging with the time difference and our schedules and making sure everything aligns. So, I will say that if you follow us on Sips and Conversations, you can stay tuned to when the next episode will drop. We will at least drop one a month. So like at least be prepared for that. But um yeah, follow us on Sips and Conversations. Follow Nancy. All the information will be in the description. If you want to be a part of this community, want to be a part of this sisterhood, um, I will put the link in our description to sign up for a newsletter. I think we're coming out with a newsletter to share more information with you guys and like resources and books and all kinds of stuff. Um, I guess I'll put my Instagram in there. You don't need to follow me unless you really feel like it. I know.
you
Well,
gotta
at least
follow
go
me.
at least go look and check out my hair because apparently it's worth seeing.
Hair and Alana is a whole director out in these streets. So check out her short film that she has.
Oh yeah, I made a
Is
documentary
that
with my
on? Is
partner.
that on your page?
Yeah, there's a link on my page for the documentary I made around my choreographic work I just put out. I made with my partner. So if you guys want to check that out, go see that. There's tons of stuff to see. If you just are like curious and you're like, who are these ladies? You can go
Yeah,
check out in the description.
yeah. Yeah, this was so fun, and I'm so thankful and appreciative. And the cool part, kind of moving forward, is that we are going to, we both have like different things that we love,
Yeah,
and so content wise, you're going to see a lot of
yeah,
our of that from the two of us. Is a choreographer, but she has like such reason behind like why her choreography. So hopefully you
yeah,
can share that with the people,
yeah,
even if we can't get together. But just to kind of like go, you know, and just have an episode of that. And then y'all know financial wellness and
yeah,
literacy is so important for me. It's really helped propel my life, and just having more of those conversations
yeah,
with you all is something that will be continued. So we have so much to share, so much to offer, and yeah, we thank you for just joining us on the ride. So thank
yeah.
you so much for tuning into our first Sips and Conversations with co-host Elana Goodman. um, so peacing out from Auburn, Alabama, and
London, England, mate.
London. Until next time,
Until next
cheers. Cheers,
time.
darling.
Cheers, sips.